Jesse Jackson expressed his solidarity with us when he visited for the first time South Africa and came to Soweto 47 years ago after the killing of Steve Biko in apartheid police cells. He drew massive crowds at rallies in Soweto, where he famously declared, as though he was a prophet, and indeed he was. He said, "This land is changing hands." When the Reagan administration chose constructive engagement, diplomatic language for doing nothing, Jesse Jackson chose unconditional solidarity with the oppressed majority in South Africa. He became the most visible American public figure advocating for comprehensive pressure and economic sanctions against apartheid South Africa. By placing South Africa at the center of American electoral politics during his presidential election campaign, Jesse Jackson influenced millions of voters to confront apartheid as their moral responsibility too. He led many marches here in the United States, and in 1985 was arrested with his two sons, Jesse Jr. and Jonathan, outside the South African embassy. They were arrested, and as they were arrested, they sang the song which Stevie Wonder rendered here, "We Shall Overcome." It was a song that became part of our struggle freedom songs, from which we drew inspiration. He took the fight against apartheid globally. On the 2nd of November, 1985, he marched with the ANC President Oliver Tambo, anti-apartheid movement President Trevor Huddleston, and more than 150,000 people in what was one of the largest anti-apartheid demonstrations ever held in Britain. Not only did he march in the streets, he walked into the corridors of power. He opened doors, and when the doors were closed, he kicked them down. He personally lobbied international leaders. He lobbied Pope John Paul II to visit South Africa and hasten change. He pressed Mikhail Gorbachev to cut all Soviet diplomatic ties with Pretoria. He challenged Margaret Thatcher to her face. She refused to budge, but he did not stop. When Nelson Mandela finally walked free in 1990, after 27 years of imprisonment, Jesse Jackson was there in Cape Town, witnessing a moment the world would never forget. He described the atmosphere as a release of glee and joy, as millions celebrated not only the freedom of a man, but the rising hope of a nation, the South African nation. In 1994, he was present when Nelson Mandela became the first democratically elected president of South Africa. Jesse Jackson kept returning after 1994, when many of his contemporaries moved on. We claim Jesse Jackson as one of our own because he never saw the struggle of the people of South Africa as a distant or foreign cause, but as a struggle that belonged to him as well. His greatest gift to the oppressed people of South Africa was the courage he gave us to believe that we must never surrender hope that justice would prevail and freedom would come. He encouraged us not to lose hope in the face of oppression, not to lose hope in the face of injustice, to have hope that ordinary people standing together would write their own history of triumph against apartheid. The life of Reverend Jesse Jackson reminds us that the struggle for justice is never the work of a single lifetime. It is a long and noble journey that is carried forward across generations. In fact, it is a relay in which the torch of freedom is passed from one generation to another. Martin Luther King Jr. lifted that torch and gave the world a dream of justice and equality. Jesse Jackson carried that dream forward with hope, keeping its flame alive in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender to injustice. And Nelson Mandela carried that dream into freedom, helping to build a rainbow nation where dignity and liberty could belong to us all.